So we're joined all the way from the Texas Panhandle in Vega, Texas, by my man, Jack F. Harper, bovine expert, uh, uh, dairy farmer, feed salesman, agricultural guru, as it is there in the great state of Texas. We
See,
thank you so much.
whenever you try to inflate something like that, you're getting a trip over yourself and add in extra accolades that I don't deserve.
I appreciate it. Well, we thank you so much for joining us. We got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson High School. We're in our agriculture, food, and natural resource career cluster, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools: Rosa Scott, Madison Central, Germantown High School, Ridgeland High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you once again for joining us, just like you did last year.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into what all it is you do in agriculture, because it really is a lot that I think these kids don't understand about what goes into cattle farming, but you just take us back a little bit about your background, because we have similar paths, how we changed careers and things. But you're originally from Texas, went to Texas Tech, then went to Oklahoma State, and then wound up down at SMU in Dallas.
Yes, sir. And spent after 8 years in Dallas, I was getting a little bit itchy and ready to go do something else. Actually had an opportunity. I was talking to my dad, who veterinarian. So I grew up around dairies, working on dairy farms. Was talking to my dad and asked for some phone numbers of people I knew just from growing up and being around him, and spending time going places whenever I was an adult. But asked him for a few phone numbers, got those phone numbers, and 2-3 weeks later, he called back and he had a guy that had quit. So he offered me a job. I went to work. That job, I was selling vaccines, antibiotics, equipment, chemicals. I mean, you name it. If anything from the conception to the death of a dairy cow, I was selling it.
Wow.
Just except for feed. And then after 6 years of doing that, a feed additive company, Diamond V, called. And they said, hey, how about coming over here and getting a job? So now feed additives is where I'm focused. We have our main product, a fermented yeast product, helps with gut health, helps with digestion, overall health of the cows, and a healthy cow produces better. So the healthier we can keep these dairy cows, the happier they are, and a happy cow makes more milk.
Absolutely. And I think that's cool. You mentioned about, you're doing the selling, and every field needs salespeople, and especially on these food products, because we literally cannot survive without a great dairy yield in the United States. And
Right.
even though you're doing the selling, it takes scientists, it takes veterinarians, it takes a lot of scientists and a lot of research to have this feed for you to sell, because you can have the best product in the world and the most scientifically advanced product in the world, but you got to have those people skills and you got to have those sales skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week, we actually had one of our veterinarians come to town. He got to spend a few days riding around with me. And as I walked in, I'd always introduce him. Hey, I brought somebody smart to talk to you today. So I'm going and talking to all my people. Hold on, I got something coming on in the background. I don't know if you can hear that or not. There you go. All right, now it's gone. That was Juanita, my girlfriend. She runs around, cleans the floor every day. It was my Roomba. So my Roomba was making noise in the background right there, and I can't stand it. Sorry. Anyways, so I brought Dr. Staley along. What we were looking at last week, and you go to the science, we were looking at what was holding these dairies back from being able to be even more profitable. And the longevity of a dairy cow. At the end of the day, eventually they're going to probably become hamburger, but we want to prolong that as far as we can, reduce the number of cows that we have around. That way we don't have to just be constantly putting in replacements and bringing in new ones. And that was what he was looking at. And, it went right to the science, and our products were able to help with that also. So.
Absolutely. Now, and one thing, and you've mentioned a few different jobs already
Yes.
in cattle farming. And I think it's interesting because in Mississippi, we have two great universities that have agriculture degrees, Alcorn State, down in Lorman, Mississippi State up in Starkville. But even though you can get great careers in agriculture with those agriculture degrees, you don't necessarily need a college degree to get into agriculture, because I know
Absolutely not.
you're always looking for drone pilots, you're always looking for salespeople, you're always looking for people that can operate your machinery. And if a kid says, I don't really want to go to college, but agriculture really interests me, this could be a great field to get into.
Absolutely. I mean, I work with so many people that, do not have degrees. Some of them didn't graduate high school, and they managed to go out there and start working on those dairies. And I'm not encouraging that at all. So, stay in school, do that. But I mean, like, there's diverse backgrounds everywhere you go. You have everything from nutritionists that formulate the feed that the cattle are going to eat on a daily basis, to the guys who, the veterinarians. I talked about that. But then you also have the guys that make sure those cows get milked every day. Because every day on a dairy, those cows are going to the parlor and they're going to give milk 2 to 3 times a day. And somebody needs to do that. So 24 hours a day, there's somebody out there working to make sure those dairy cows are comfortable, happy, and healthy.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this last time. You thought it was interesting. Here in Madison County Schools, we actually have an unmanned aerial system program at our career center where kids in high school can get certified to fly drones. And I know we talked about in class last time, geospatial mapping in agriculture might be except for the military, may be the number one thing that drones are being used for right now, because you guys have got to see fields. You've got to see where herds are going. You got to see where to plant things, even people on the crop side. But drone pilots are where it's at right now in agriculture.
Well, I mean, and so I fly my drone pretty regular, looking at how we mix feed. A lot of that stuff you said was well above my pay grade, well above my education, that's for sure. Matter of fact, last week I was told that I can't fly my drone anymore until I go get that license. So all of our drones are sitting in our pickups, not flying around. But yes, I mean, drones, data management is a really big one. So more and more, everywhere you go in town, you see signs saying, "Hey, now hiring, now hiring, now hiring." Everywhere you go, it's the same thing in agriculture, and every level of agriculture. People, they need people and they need help. But all these companies are coming together, and everybody keeps on coming up with great technology. We have technology that helps us manage how much feed the cows get. We have technology that whenever they go into the parlor, it tells us how much milk that cow gave. These cows are out here wearing Fitbits right now, telling them, tracking their activity. I'm not joking. I mean, they wear a collar. It tracks their activity, tracks how often they're ruminating, tracks how much they're eating. And anytime something goes a little bit off in that activity, it flags and says, "Hey, go look at that cow." And on some of these dairies, you're talking thousands and thousands of cows. All right.
Wow.
I mean, the one that I was on over the weekend, he's got 3,000 cows. He's got collars on all of them. And that collar says, "Hey, go look at this cow." And, if something's going through the herd and something's causing those cows discomfort, those collars are really helping them out. But, at the same time, like, I've got all this information coming from all these different sources, but none of it wants to talk to each other. And so right now, one of the big things that people are going out and doing, some of these guys that know a little bit about a few of these programs, but can understand the technology aspect, can make different computer programs communicate with each other. Those guys are going out and staying as busy as they want to be. All right. I talked to a guy on Thursday. We're trying to figure out, I mean, there's a group of dairies that we have in a peer group. They're all together. They all use one program except for one guy. One guy uses a different program, and we're having problems getting his data in there to look at his key performance indicators and all the metrics so that he can compare himself to everybody else. So we need people that can understand how to do that computer work. You don't ever see a cow. You don't ever get pooped on. None of that happens. We just need somebody to go out there and figure out how, like you saw me, I couldn't even figure out how to turn up the volume on this iPad. I'm not the guy to integrate data. All right. I need somebody else that can do that stuff. And that's across everywhere. That's where it's at.
Yeah, and these data systems certifications are big time needed in agriculture in all fields right now. Now, something I always like talking about, especially with you and me, because we came from the same field for a short time. That's how we connected back and I won't say how long ago because we're old, but we both spent time at Campus Rec. You at Oklahoma State, and then over in Dallas at SMU. I was at Southern Miss, LSU, and then at Austin P. And obviously, neither one of us are in that field anymore. But I think one thing that we can take away from that is, we mentioned a couple of the colleges. Even if you don't want to go into agriculture, use your college experience to build on other things. Because even though we stepped away into different career fields, we use those skills that we got to be successful in what we're doing. So,
I've got my notes. Communication is right there at the top.
Yeah.
Communication. Like, I think both of us, and sorry to cut you off, but I think communication is what both of us took away from our college experience. We know how to talk to people. We know how to go in there, speak to our peers. That's one of the hardest things I ever did. Refereeing intramurals, you have to communicate. If you don't communicate, you're the guy that washes out after 6 weeks. But continue. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Because even if you don't want to go into agriculture, to be successful in business and be in any field, you've got to have those communication skills. You've got to learn how to work with different people that may be from, SMU, I know is Oklahoma State as well. You got people from all over the world. When I was at LSU, I was working with people from Africa, people from Europe, people from Asia, people that were Muslims, people that were, all kind of different lifestyles. And you got to learn to work with everybody. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I would tell anybody that wants to go to college. Find something to get involved in to work on those skills. Work on things. Walk into a room, learning how to introduce yourself. Even if you don't want to sell feed, learn how to sell something. If you can sell something, you can always have a job.
Yeah, right below communication, tell a story. Like myself, I can talk about our products. I know about our products because I know the stories behind it. And whenever you go and talk to people, they'll remember your story. They may not remember the technology. They may not remember how what you have is successful. But if you can tell a story that they remember, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember what you're bringing to the table to offer, and they're going to be more interested. Because as soon as you get people, if you're in a sales position, which I'll argue most anything anybody does has sales in it. Because if you're not selling a product, you're selling yourself. If you're not selling yourself and a product, there are very few people that get to spend their professional career locked in a room, not interacting with others. All right. In order to get a job, you will have to sell yourself. And if you can't sit down, communicate well, and tell a story, you're going to struggle.
And just as like any other field, agriculture needs that, because obviously you talked about prolonging the life of the cows. These companies are investing a lot of money into these cattle. They want to have a good product. A cattle that isn't healthy is a huge loss of money and somebody's loss of a job.
Right. Well, and the simple at the end of the day is it is an animal. It is a being. We want these cattle to be healthy. Dairy, big agriculture in general has enough of a challenge with the people that are outside trying to dictate what should go on. People on the outside trying to form the narrative of the opinions of people out there in society. And, unfortunately, they do a really good and compelling job sometimes of telling those stories and putting pictures into the worst light possible. I know at the end of the day, the reason people wake up, this morning before any of you even thought about getting out of bed, Juan Carlos was up there at the dairy and he was feeding the cows. And I'm not saying that. Juan Carlos is the guy's name. I'm looking at his cows eating feed on camera. He's up there right now. He started work at 3:30 this morning. Okay. In order to get to work at 3:30 this morning, he left at 3. He's not out there feeding those cows because he doesn't like them. All right. He's out there. That's the thing. We're talking about making sure that those cows get fed every day at the same time within 20 minutes. That way they can be, just smooth, because just like any of us, we eat lunch. What time's the lunch period, Tiger?
It's different times, but it starts around 12 here.
But everybody goes in there to their lunch period at the same time every day. If you go in an hour early or an hour late, you end up in a bad mood at some point in the day. Right? If you're an hour late to lunch, you're going to be in a bad mood at lunchtime. If you're an hour early, by the time dinner gets around now, because if you eat lunch an hour early, but your dinner isn't until 8 o'clock still, you're going to be in a bad mood at dinner time because you just made lunch last an extra hour. You get hungry, you get mad. At least I do.
I never thought about that. That's a good point. I know. I think we just see cows as robots, but I think that that actually that's a very valid point. Now, I got some
Right.
good questions. Before I get to the questions, one thing I like to talk about with this, and it doesn't have a lot to do with ag or anything to do with ag, but I think it needs to be talked about is, we both officiate, and
Yep.
we have a couple of athletes in here. We'll have some athletes that see this later, and I think it needs to be said that we need young people to get into officiating, no matter what
Absolutely.
sport, soccer, volleyball, uh, baseball, basketball, football. If you enjoy playing something now, and even if you have aspirations of playing college sports, I referee with people all the time that played college basketball. I referee with a guy that won the NIT with Southern Miss in 1987. So there are great athletes that become great officials, and we need people to get into this. Me and you are in our 40s, and we're pretty much always the youngest ones, and that's not a good sign because I always say at some point we're going to run out of officials in every sport, and you're starting to see it, and it's only going to get worse. So why should these young kids, really think about, I enjoy playing sports now, I should get into officiating later in life?
There's two real easy ones, and one we already talked about: communication. Nothing will teach you how to better communicate than having to go over to somebody who's mad during a basketball game or soccer or whatever it is. Because now not only do you need to get your point across, you got to get them calmed down enough that they'll listen to your point. And so if you can do all that and get the communication and get to where they can listen to you and make your point without dragging on, that's what helps. And you say that about great athletes. The best athletes are the ones that are able to go in there and start refereeing those games. Because they are going to step right in. They already know the game. They already look the part, and they're getting past the hardest things. Knowing when to call a foul, when not to call a foul, it comes natural if you've played years and years and years of whatever sport it is. But at the same time, if you show up, you got a pot belly, you don't run very well, you're not an athlete, that guy's going to get yelled at all night. And I think every athlete in the room can relate to that. So that's why we need athletic young people to get involved.
Absolutely. And the camaraderie is unmatched, and it's a great workout.
Absolutely.
I tell people all the time, I'm getting a little money in my pocket and I'm getting a great workout in.
Right.
If I go to the gym, I get bored, but if I'm calling a game, I don't even think about it. And after the game, I feel like I've run 5, 6 miles. So it also is just a wonderful way to stay in shape, meet people you wouldn't have met, see places you wouldn't have seen, and just get to, just have a lot of memories and stay involved in a game that desperately needs them to stay involved in.
You remember Hargraves?
Absolutely. He just did he's doing the Paralympics in Paris right now. He's been
He's
the
on his
Paralympics
way there. Yeah,
times.
that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Talk about places you wouldn't think of going to
Yeah,
referee.
he's been to South America. He's been to Rio de
Yep,
Janeiro. He did the Paris Paralympics. He did the London Paralympics. So he did the Tokyo Paralympics. So again,
yeah,
just a guy from Alabama, just a guy from Podunk, Alabama, that's calling wheelchair Olympics and the Paralympics. So wheelchair
absolutely.
basketball and the Paralympics. So there's all kinds of opportunities that you don't know until you try.
Right, absolutely. And even if you don't go that far, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn how to communicate with people. There's no doubt in my mind. If you do that for any amount of time, it will improve your communication skills.
Absolutely. Well, I do have some good questions.
All right.
And these are all ninth graders. And I have mainly young women in here with me today, but we need young ladies to get into agriculture as well. This is Renaya Matthews, and she asked, "How old were you when you decided to move to this career, and what made you most, and what most wanted you, what most convinced you to make a living out of agriculture?"
Well, I grew up in it, so that was the natural thing. I wouldn't be where I am without agriculture. Whenever I made that switch, I was 33. So whenever I went from working campus recreation, jumped back into agriculture, I was 33.
Okay. This is a good question. This is Rayshon Williamson, one of our football players here, and he asked, "How do you decide how much feed to give your animals?"
Uh, it, there are norms that we try to stick within, but like I said earlier, we have that nutritionist, and each nutritionist is going to adjust that ration to fit the cows based on the available ingredients that we have, based on everything that is there on the dairy. So, I've talked about mix and feed, just like, you guys make a cake whenever it's somebody's birthday. It's the same thing. We look around the feed center. We know what we have. We know we've got some corn. We know we've got some corn silage. We got some hay. We got some straw. We've got some wheat silage. We've got all these different ingredients, and we figure out just how much of it to put into the wagon, mix together, and then put in front of that cow. Like I said, I'm watching cows eat feed. I've got a camera hanging up. After we're done with this, I'm going to get over there. I'm going to look at those pictures, and we're looking at, did we have feed in front of those cows all day, all night? It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and we want them to eat. If they're eating constantly, it keeps the pH balanced in that gut. And if we keep the pH balanced in the gut, she's happy and she's going to go and be productive. So he's asking a little bit of a trick question, but some of it is, we know based on the formulation of the ration, hey, they ought to eat about this much. But then it's observation. It's seeing, okay, that was enough to get them till 3 a.m. Juan Carlos showed up, fed this pen at 5. We need 2 more hours worth of feed in front of those cows. And then, so they bump it up a couple pounds, and then off we go.
Yeah. And I know you have a cool machine that mixes the feed, and, you need people that can operate those machines. So any type of machinist experience could be great to work in this type of field.
You want to talk about work, operate the machine. We also need people to fix the machine.
Yeah.
And a lot of these dairies out here, there are companies that will service those machines. But a lot of these dairies got tired of waiting in line, and they went and started hiring their own mechanics to work on everything around the dairy. So whether it's the tractor for pushing up feed, the loader, the feed wagon, the tractors for cleaning out the pens, anything like that. I mean, if you have diesel mechanic experience and just basic being able to work on stuff, they can teach you the rest of it. And a lot of the stuff is learned on farm. And so, we went to dinner on Sunday night or Saturday night, and the guy I was waiting on, about 30 minutes before we were supposed to meet, he sends me a text, hey, going to be a little bit late, power went out. And I hate to break it to you, if you're milking cows 24 hours a day and the power's out, there's nothing you can do without power. And so, and it took, like, he's trying to educate other people to get them into his role to where he can have a little bit more flexibility. But it takes that expertise of knowing how those processes work, how that equipment works, and how those systems work in order to keep that going.
Yeah, and something I thought about, and this made me think about it, is once the milk is gotten out of the cow, it's got to stay cool. So you've got to have really good HVAC people. So
Yes.
getting these HVAC certifications, there is always going to be a spot for HVAC people in agriculture. And I don't think people realize that. They think HVAC, they think somebody's home. These industrial refrigerators that keep milk cool have got to be working 24 hours a day.
And it is a complex design on how they make those cooling equipment, because it doesn't just need to be cool. You need to take it from 98 degrees, 100 degrees, whatever it is, right down to under 30, or I'm sorry, under 36. And the faster you can get it cool, the higher quality that milk is. Because for every moment that milk spends above 40 degrees, the bacteria are growing. And until you get it below 36 degrees, it continues to grow. Because in everything, it's a living thing. There's no way that you can't have some of that in some of the milk. But the milk quality is where it's at. And these dairies get paid based on a quality bonus. And so that, you're absolutely right. The chillers, the cooling equipment are absolutely essential to those operations.
Wow. I love this question. This is Caroline Flowers, and she asked, what are the biggest challenges you face as a cattle farmer?
Well, I don't farm them. Thank everything. I just get to assist the guys that do. So I would say the biggest challenge is what I was just talking about. We're going to dinner. We've got plans. Hey, we're going to go do something. But something broke. And you can't say, hey, I'm not at work. I don't want to mess with it. You have to go and take care of it. And so it never ends. I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges. It never ends. Finding people to work, very difficult. That's why more and more things are going to automation. We talked about robotic milking the last time I was here. I don't know if you shared that video again, but a lot of these dairies are sitting there, and they can't find people to work. They can't find people to do the basic jobs that need to be done. And so whenever they're going out there and looking at things, they're looking at, okay, if I can automate this and this and this, that means I need 3 less people to work on my dairy. That's 3 less people to manage. That's 3 less attitudes. That's 3 less problems. And so, between it never stops, finding help, and then just finding out how to not spend your way into being broke is all. I mean, that's another one, because stuff, just to fill up a tractor with diesel is not cheap.
Yeah.
So,
All right, I've got two more. This is Chloe Luckett. She's one of our cheerleaders here. And she asked, if you had kids, would you want them to get into the agricultural field?
absolutely. There's just so much to be learned, because like I was saying a little bit ago, you have to know all these different things. And if something breaks, you have to figure out how to fix it and get everything working. That way you can get the job done. I learned a lot of that whenever I was growing up. It served me well whenever I went into campus recreation, because then I had a basic understanding of how, some of the equipment we would use would work. Painting fields, by golly, painting fields. We all did it. Were you still doing it with the spray can and the little rolly truck?
Yeah, I had a bunch of kids that like doing it, but but yeah, if they weren't there, I had to do it myself.
Hey, I went above and beyond the rolly truck with the spray cans. I went and got one of those motorized painting field tractors. And, just having to figure out, okay, what's wrong with it? Why is it not working? Why is it not moving paint? Figuring out that small engine, figuring out how that equipment was supposed to operate. There were plenty of times where we were sitting there dead in the water, a little bit of tinkering with it, get it fixed, get it going. And that comes from working on equipment as a young kid.
Absolutely. Well, I've got one more. This is Naomi Smith, one of our basketball players here. And she asked, what is the biggest motivation that you've had to get where you are today?
Oh, just doing the best I can for people that I'm with. If I'm doing the best I can, then I'm helping them be the best that they're capable of being. And like the other day, I keep on talking about these cameras, but that's exactly it. I had somebody call me, they're like, hey, this is what I think is going on. I said, okay, I got you there. I can hang these up. We'll figure it out, blah, blah, blah. Well, we talked about feeding time and all of that being the same. On Thursday, I hung up the camera. On Saturday morning, I said, hey, your feeder's starting whenever he feels like starting. On Thursday morning, he fed the cows at 5. On Friday morning, he started feeding the cows at 1 a.m. On Saturday, he came back at 5. I was like, we're bouncing all over the place. We're feeding these, and everybody's just like, holy crap. Go to our other dairy, put up cameras there too. You're hired on both, and that's just me waking up and wanting to do good, help those cows, help the people. Recently, the big answer. So after my dad passed away, we inherited his business. People were asking, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? My big thing that I kept on saying to everybody, we're going to take care of people and we're going to take care of cows, because we still had that veterinary practice. We still had the distribution. We still had all of that. But that's my same philosophy whenever I'm doing everything I'm doing day to day. Because if I'm taking care of people that take care of cows, I'm taking care of cows.
Absolutely.
And if we're taking care of cows and we're doing all that, everybody's going to end up in a better place.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us. It's always a pleasure, and just all these years later, if you'd have told me when we met 20 years ago, this is where we'd be, I'd have told you you're a liar. But at the end of the day, why should these kids, and especially these ones here with me, we're in a rural area. These kids have grown up around cows and being out in the country, and we have a lot of local farmers here. Why should these kids really consider a career in agriculture?
Because the opportunities are endless. They say farmers feed the world. It's the truth. You can't do without it. At the end of the day, everybody in there, if they haven't already had something dairy on their plate, I can't believe it. How many people wake up, get cheese, like it's the little things you don't even think about. Milk, the girlfriend's daughter has dairy allergy, it's amazing how much stuff she can't eat just because there's dairy in everything, and there are alternatives, there are things like that, but the most effective way to get the nutrients for what the body needs is going to be through dairy protein.
Wow. And I don't, and you know, and I think a lot of kids don't realize that. So this field is not going away. So it really needs
No.
them to consider. And there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of opportunities to be all over the place. Well, we thank you for fitting us in your busy schedule. It's always a pleasure. Jack Harper, all the way from Vega, Texas, in the Texas Panhandle. Thank you so much for joining us.
Have a good one, General. Have a good one.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, later, bye.